What's my prediction? This isn't even gonna be fucking close. This won't be remotely close. I know that a lot of people are very concerned, and the polls and stuff like that. They're wrong, and the fact that Republicans have started panicking tells me that the models they built that gave them whatever result they wanted to see is collapsing. This is going to be a comfortable win for Harris. I fully expect Donald Trump just to get abandoned by his base, people not show up. He doesn't have a core message, doesn't have a reason for people to show up. The people in these responses that are saying they're likely to vote, they're just not going to show up. I don't think it's going to be close. He has low propensity voters saying they're going to show up for the first time. Nope. Yep. The Iowa poll, can Iowa flip? No. Almost certainly no. It would take a wild get bent to by the American people for Iowa to flip. Same thing goes for Ohio, Kansas, Ohio, Iowa. These states aren't really likely to flip. They're pretty solidly in the Trump camp. I don't think that they're all out of reach. I do think that probably a state is going to flip, which I'll get to in a second. I think Harris is going to win. Probably the lowest margin she'll have is in Arizona. I expect her to win somewhere between 5 and 8 points in Michigan, somewhere between 2 and 5 in Wisconsin. I have probably 3 to 6 in Pennsylvania. I have 4. I have her winning Wisconsin by 2 to 4. Michigan, I'm on the high side. I think she's going to win it by probably 8. And Georgia's an interesting one because the early voting data shows that it's going really bad for Trump. I think she's going to beat the polls in that by a lot. I don't think Georgia's going to be remotely close. I think she's going to beat it by somewhere between 3 and 7 points. Maybe as low as 2. North Carolina, somewhere between 2 and 4. And Texas, I don't think will flip. I don't think she has the opportunity to flip Texas, barring some wild polling error. Anybody that tells you Texas is going to flip, there's just no evidence to support that, unless you're extrapolating the data out of polls from various places in the country that show that she's doing better in Republican strongholds. It's probably not going to flip. On paper, though, it is better to flip for Dems than Florida. However, I think Florida's going to flip. I think Florida's going to flip. On paper, it's not the state that should flip. But I think it's going to flip. Or it's going to be very close. I don't think Florida's going to be that far off. I generally put her around 4 points in the polls. I know that aggregators have Donald Trump up by a lot more. I think she's probably down by 4. And I'm pretty sure that could be made up. That's going to be a lot of votes. But based on the Puerto Rican community down there, I think that might be enough to flip the state. How confident am I in Florida or any other state flipping that's blue or that's red? Not very. I will say that there's a potential there. Not very likely. But I keep looking over the numbers, and I think it's a lot less favorable for Donald Trump there than he thinks. My final call is going to be that I don't think it's going to flip, but it will not surprise me if it does. Texas would surprise me. Any other state besides the ones that are battlegrounds would surprise me. If Florida flips, it's going to be a bad fucking night for Republicans. They lose immediately. Election over. Inherently, if I had to stake on it, I would probably put Florida going Republican. But there's good news. I think Cruz is going to lose out of Texas. Fairly confident in that. But, I mean, a lot of these things are anybody's guess, so it's just judging the political landscape. I think Cruz is going to lose out of Texas. I'm pretty positive of it. I think he's a favorite there. I don't think it's a coin flip. I think that Allred's up. Scott, the polling comes out of there as less favorable to Powell in Florida. I think I'd inherently give it to Scott, but I would not surprise me if he loses. Osborne, I think Osborne's going to win out of Nebraska. I think that's coming. Tester, I'm even second guessing Tester. If that Iowa poll is right in any regard, even if it's off by a few points, Tester has a shot. And Tester's a guy that's beat the polls before. So Tester might win out of Montana. I think that race might be closer than it's leading on up there. I wonder what the adjustments would be made for, because I haven't really looked after the Iowa poll, if it's even remotely correct, how much it would flip in his favor. I think this is setting up to be a real bad night for Republicans. It's hard to tell. I think that Dems right now, it's hard to call precisely which races because the polling shit is so fucked up. But I would probably favor the Democrats to at least take 50 in the Senate. I mean, it could run up, especially if the Iowa, Kansas polls are correct. It could run way the fuck up. It's really hard to quantify, though. I mean, it is. It's really hard to quantify and aggregate all of the, or add all of the advantages she has. Best case scenario for Trump, he loses by a little bit. Worst case scenario, it destroys the Republican Party. I don't see a path for Trump. The turnout is too great. He's going to lose. I don't see a path for him. So I'm confident in that. How confident? Yeah, it's not going to happen. I'm not even putting it down as a possibility at this point. I think what's far more likely is Harris has somewhere between a comfortable win and a full-blown landslide, like nothing we've seen before. If those Iowa polls are correct, if women are breaking for Harris at that rate in traditional Republican strongholds, it's the end of the Republican Party. But I don't see a path for Donald Trump. I just don't see it for him. It was already difficult enough, and he's butchered it. These last 2 weeks, people are breaking for him. Double digits are breaking for Harris. Republicans are seemingly abandoning the Republican Party. We've got hints of it. We won't know until election night, but it appears that the Republicans are abandoning the Republican Party. And at a time where a percentage point in any group can cost them the election, yeah. I mean, here's the reality. I can't tell you all of these Republican strongholds and what's going to happen there and what's going to happen with most of the Senate races. It really is a coin flip. I would say that the Democrats have a better shot in winning the Senate this year than I think they've had in a very, very long time. The Republican Party and their infrastructure is just a mess. Just a mess. Yeah, I think Pennsylvania goes 4 points Harris. Michigan, somewhere between 6 and 8. Wisconsin's probably going to go somewhere between 2 and 4. Anything more than that, and it's just like, Jesus Christ. Put them in a body bag, Ryan. I think it's funny. The Republicans are like dead set on this. House is going to flip for Dems. Probably 230 seats or more. Could get out of control. Could get really out of control. Could be 240 if it gets crazy. I think anything more than that's wishful thinking. Anybody that tells you that Florida and Texas or any other state's going to flip, there's just not the evidence for it. I will tell you that there is an absence of evidence that it's not going to happen. So there's that. There is that possibility that it happens. It would require significant. It would require Republican turnout to collapse, and right now, it's looking that way. It's looking like Republican turnout's going to collapse. The Democrats is not going to. But I don't see a path for Trump anymore. I think that became wildly apparent. So I'm somewhere between a comfortable win and a landslide. That's where I'm at. My prediction is Harris takes all swing states. I don't see a world in where Trump wins Arizona. I just don't see it. I mean, like, if we assume it's a repeat, I can't imagine the people there are more enthusiastic to vote for Trump than they were last time. I think that she's probably up in that state. It's going to be closer than the other ones. I think if she is to drop a swing state, it's probably that one. But if what we've seen happen is true, which is the polls, are drastically underestimating women, yeah, it's over. What do you make of the Iowa poll saying that seniors are really breaking for Harris? Makes the EV for Republicans look even worse. Yeah, right now. I mean, here's the reality, right? Is like the math in Pennsylvania is almost impossible for Donald Trump to overcome. That really is what it is. The math in Pennsylvania is really bad for him. Right now, he has. I'll let somebody here in just a second. Right now, Harris has 511. This is as of 2 days ago, so it's only gone up. She has a 511,000 vote firewall after you adjust for same day voters from 2020. I don't think he's overcoming that. That's it would require insane turnout from Republicans. It's not going to materialize. He's going to drop it. He's going to lose. He's going to lose Pennsylvania, and probably by a lot. To keep in mind, the comfortable margin for a Harris win in Pennsylvania was somewhere between 400 and 475,000 votes. So she's already surpassed that by 40 grand. I know everybody will say I'm wrong and all this other stuff. I've been right a lot. So I was right in 2022. Called all the Senate races there. I was right in 2020. I didn't focus on the Senate races as much out of 2020. But in the president, I called that one. I was really hyper-focused on the presidential one because there were so many moving parts. So I didn't analyze the polls to the degree that I did in the Senate races. 2022 was spot on, though. 2018, pretty accurate. Said the Dems would win the House against polling. 2016 said that I thought Trump could win. I actually built the map, and when the numbers started coming in from Virginia, I knew it was going to be a bad night for Harris. Clinton, sorry. Did I see Harris? My bad. Iowa, I don't think it's going to flip. I think that ultimately there's either two options. One, Republicans default to Harris, or two, they just don't show up, which is a possibility. They just won't show up. Donald Trump's singing the oldest song he has. There's nothing new. He's not offering anyone anything. He's attacking a system that, sure, people are going through hardship right now. Are those going to materialize into votes? No. Are people that much more concerned about the economy? No. And he hasn't made a coherent message that he's the one that could handle the economy. I think it's over. I'm not remotely concerned. I know a lot of people are very concerned. I'm not. Do I think she's going to win every swing state? Yeah, by sizable margins. I mean, here's the thing. Like, there were about 5 different reasons Harris is going to win in a blowout here, or could win in a blowout. If one of those comes true, it's going to be a real comfortable night. Republicans abandon Trump, which we've seen. That's one that's a possibility. Women are a silent vote in this election, which we already know that they are. So what degree of effect is that going to have? Couldn't tell you. People are done with Trump. They want to protect and preserve democracy. And if you're like a casual voter, you're watching it, whatever. And I think this is where the Republicans made their mistake, is that their ground game was online. It's really online only. And for a lot of people over on Twitter, whatever, they've been fed for weeks that Trump's going to win. And I just want to say 2 things. One, I said in a video about 2 weeks ago, maybe a little less, that this election, the momentum was going to change in Harris's favor just before the election. And this is like the perfect spot to be. People are concerned about the election, but they're confident enough to go out and vote for her. Be like, oh yeah, we're gonna win. I want to be part of this. I want to be part of something. And 2, I said that this was landslide potential a long time ago. A long time ago, against pretty much everyone. And now we have the news talking about landslide potential. And now we have the news saying that the polls are wrong, or are likely to be wrong. Now we have Nate Silver saying the probability that the polls are right is 1 in 9.5 trillion. All of the concerns that I had about, whether or not Trump could win haven't materialized. And the opposite is true. All of the ones in which I thought Harris would win in a landslide are currently materializing. We're watching them in real time. But you're basing confidence on polls in Iowa and polls of who voted. I'm not basing my confidence off of Iowa. I don't think that the Iowa poll shows that like Harris is going to win now. That's not why. The reason the Iowa poll gives me confidence is not because of it shows Harris winning. It gives me confidence because the same poll has been conducted previous in Iowa. It had Biden down about 4 months ago by 18 points. When Harris took over about 2 months ago, there was another poll conducted that showed her down by 4, and now it shows her up by 3. You can say, you can say that that probably won't materialize, and I would agree with you. But one thing you cannot deny is that making up 21 points in any poll, any repeated poll, is not a good thing for Trump. I don't think that she'll win Iowa. I don't think she'll win Ohio. I don't think that she'll win Kansas. I think those are probably too far out of reach unless Republican support collapses. I think that Texas is in the cards for her. The demographics are there. It's whether or not they can get people out to vote. In Florida, I don't think the race is that far off there. I think that Donald Trump is still favored, and I would favor him largely because the Democrats have not spent the resources that the Republicans have there. But I wouldn't count Florida out at all. They had polling adjustments after 2022. See, the problem was 2022 sort of reaffirmed what pollsters were believing, which is that, oh, Florida's moving more red. But I don't think it's because the electorate is moving red. I think it's because of external factors. I think it's because Chris ran as a Democrat. I think it's because Rubio and DeSantis aren't vehemently hated within the state, even though they should be. So you have Val Demings and Chris Christie, who are just underwhelming candidates running against twice the money. Anyway, that's my thoughts. I'm not concerned. I am annoyed. I'm annoyed because I really just want this to be over with and watch MAGA suffer. And yeah. Will Texas and Florida go if Iowa goes? If Florida goes early on in the night, expect Iowa to be in play. Yeah. We don't know. It's impossible to quantify what's an important variable or what variable is going to materialize. It's impossible. And we don't know if they're additive. We don't know. But I will tell you that Harris has the potential to have somewhere between, I would give her an inherent two-point advantage. Just the advantage I would give her would be 2 points across the battlegrounds, right? She's going to win against decent battleground polls by 2 points, right? Which would put her in close in 3 states, but winning the election. I think that's like the bare minimum I would give her, is +2 across the battlegrounds. There are variables that have the potential to affect this to where it just gets out of control. Republicans don't show up. They abandon Trump. Trump loses support in his base. We know that that's true. Women show up. People that were respondents in polls, women that were respondents in polls were concerned about their spouse finding out about the results or something to that degree. And we see women show up en masse. We see Republican women abandon the Democratic Party. There's a whole ton of stuff that could happen. If you were to treat those as additive, this could run all the way up to a 10+% Harris advantage. I don't think it's going to run up that high. But if it's a third, it's going to be a landslide. If it's a quarter, it's going to be a landslide. If it's 10%, it's going to be very comfortable. Very, very comfortable. I don't know. I don't see where Donald Trump is enthusing more people to show up. In fact, the opposite. I think that he's really hurt himself in the last few days. And independents are breaking for Harris. If independents are breaking for Harris in the way that we've seen and Donald Trump's support doesn't materialize, it's a landslide too. There's a lot of variables, and it's hard to quantify which ones are going to have an impact and the degree because there's no way to poll for them. So what you may see is like a whole bunch of these unpollable questions or unknowable questions or things that were missed by pollers sort of stack up into this landslide. I'm somewhere in the Harris wins by comfortable to medium landslide margins. I think that there's good evidence to put it in there. I don't think that there's good evidence to put it in this is going to be a full-on blowout historic. He drops Florida, Texas, whatever. But I feel comfortable that there's enough evidence to show that Trump is going to lose across the Midwest and Harris will do reasonably well in the Sun Belt. I actually have Georgia I don't know why I have Georgia going for Harris. I think she's going to beat the polls there, somewhere between 4 and 7 points. I don't think Georgia's going to be close. I really don't. I mean, it could be, but based on everything we know, early voting data, Democrats are showing up at a higher rate. The cannibalization of same-day voters on the Republican side, Democrats have a huge lead there. And the same thing with Pennsylvania. There's a lot of people, pollsters included, really reputable pollsters, saying, "I don't think it's going to be close." There's just no way to quantify it in the polls. In 2022, I called Fetterman, despite nobody thought he would win. In 2022, I called Warnock. I called Kelly. I called the Tim Ryan race. I gave advantage, but said it was a coin flip to Masta, which, by the way, it was within a 1 point. And the same thing with Wisconsin. We were just going to have to see. So I would say that was pretty fucking accurate. I also said I didn't think the Republicans were going to get as many seats as they did in the House. And they didn't. They barely got any. I said, quote, "This is not going to be a good night for Republicans, and Tuesday is not going to be a good night for Republicans." But this is the finding out phase of fucking around.